I'd like to call to order this regular council meeting and start by putting on the chain of office. Upside down? No, it's a mess. So, first item is declarations of pecuniary interest. I'll ask any member if they have a pecuniary interest they'd like to declare. Seeing none, of course, you can declare anytime you need to. Next is additions, deletions, or amendments. We don't have any of those. No public meeting. That moves us on to adoption of the minutes, and I have a motion moved by Councillor Schreider, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, that Council adopt the minutes of the Council meeting of June 24th, 2019 as presented. Questions or comments to that set of minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. That moves us then on to Committee of the Whole minutes, June 24, 2019. I have a motion moved by Councillor Mayette, seconded by Councillor Grace, that Council note and file the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting of June 24, 2019 as presented. Questions or comments to that set of minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. That moves us on to report of the Committee of the Whole, and we have a general government report from June 24th, 2019, and it's been moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by the Vice Deputy Mayor, that Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores adopts the general government report dated June 24, 2019, recommending the following. 1. That Council accepts the 2018 annual audited financial statements as presented by Michael Bolton of BDO. 2. That Council authorizes the transfers to, from, reserves and reserve funds as outlined in the tables attached to the CFO Treasurer's Staff Report dated June 24, 2019, for the 2018 year end, and 3, that Council authorize staff to enter into a facility rental agreement with Fanshawe College for the regular use of classroom space in the Southampton Fire Hall, and that the facility rental fee be waived. Questions or comments to the resolution? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. That moves us then on to report of municipal officers and committees, item 1 there is a staff report on the South Breakwater and South Breakwater Extension project, and I'll turn it over to the Director of Community Services.
Thank you. Some of you may be aware or have seen testing that has been occurring over at the breakwater within the last couple of weeks through DFO. The CAO and myself have been meeting regularly with DFO through this process for tendering. The DFO has expressed if the tender is to exceed the budget, that the municipality would consider contributing up to $700,000 to complete this budget. So this evening, staff is looking for consideration for that as a pre-budget approval moving forward. I also remind Council that the end product will provide a walking platform for all users to be able to enjoy on the breakwater.
Thank you. I have a resolution. I'll read it and we'll take questions or comments. It's been moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Smith, that Council support the South Breakwater and South Breakwater Extension Rehabilitation Project, and that Council approve pre-budget approval in the amount of no greater than $700,000 if needed to complete the South Breakwater and South Breakwater Extension with a walking platform. Questions or comments from members of Council? The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, question for our Director of Community Services. Jane, if we don't approve this, what will the break wall look like? Will there be cement, or is it just rocks piled up to be a break wall?
It'll be armor stone along there. It will not be a walking apparatus on the top, and it will reduce the budget considerably.
I totally understand this, Mr. Mayor. It's a tough one coming up with $700,000 for this. We've spent a lot of money on the beach in Port Elgin, but with the rejuvenation we're looking at, I believe this is probably the only choice we have to complete the project at the Port Elgin Beach. So I will be, reluctantly, but I will be supporting this motion.
The CAO has a comment. CAO?
Yeah, I just wanted to build on and clarify, build on what Jane was saying, is the request is up to, when we met with the DFO, that their purchasing process is different than ours, and they tier up their project. So it's this or that or different levels, and then they open them up and they match wherever the funding is to the project level that they've got. So it is possible that they get to the top level and don't require any of our funding.
Further comments? Councillor Schreider.
Thank you, and through you. Jane, was the report done on the north side condition when the original inspection was done?
It certainly was, and at that time, the conditions of the north side were fair, I'll say, to favorable, much better than the south side.
Okay, so no expected life expectancy with that report?
No life expectancy with that report, and at this point, obviously, it's not included with this
Right, yeah.
tender.
And the reason for asking that is that, so on the north side where we have HDOC, which I think there's 22, 23 slips perhaps, that actually require that cement walkway as part of their docking infrastructure system, that if we know that that life cycle is shorter or coming up then for repair, is that we would be looking at, that would drastically change our harbor if we didn't go with a walkway along there or that type of docking system.
Potentially, staff internally is reviewing the north side over the next couple of years. It's identified in the 10-year capital forecast. Part of the design may be aborting the usage of the HDOC as a spine, I'll say, and using a flotation device along that area instead of using the HDOC, which
Okay.
we refer to is the concrete walkway.
Right, yeah, and I forgot we were looking at that, so that's good. I think I just struggle a little bit with this one with regards to, and maybe Jane could answer this too. How many complaints have we received, I guess, since the fencing went up, I'm going to say 2.5 years ago? I personally haven't heard any complaints, but I don't know around the table or if the administration is receiving complaints.
Yes, certainly when the fence initially went up, we did receive some complaints.
Sure.
What we're experiencing now are people are going around the fence, and they're just using the breakwater.
Right. Okay. And then, sorry. If, I guess I look at too then what steps of the waterfront master plan, because as we had indicated earlier, is that there's significant contributions coming that we have done and also coming down the line, as well as I guess within our forecast over the next few years is that we still have substantial projects that we're going to complete down there. And when we have $700,000 to discuss, I guess I look at, where is the best use for that money down at the waterfront, if that's where it's allocated for. I think as well, I guess I could look at is that the original intent of a breakwall is to protect that inner harbor, is to protect those boats and part of that beach when it goes to the south as well. So, is it gravy that we've had that walkway for how many years? And I swam there when I was little, and I loved it. But I guess if we can get the overall, like the original intent of the breakwall that protects that inner harbor, is gravy considered $700,000? And that's where I'm struggling with right now is with regards to that price tag. So is there a chance as well that the tender hasn't went out yet, it's a separate bid item, and that we don't necessarily have to go ahead with that component of it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the federal bid and tendering process is complicated, and I'll try to articulate it, but I'm not an expert in it. What they will do is they'll say, option one is we'll do the extension but not the other. Option two is we'll do both at a certain level. Option three is we will do one with make it accessible for people to walk. Option four is we'll make both accessible to walk. So they bid out 10 different options, but they don't have the ability to because of the protocol, they don't have the ability to change their budget. So they take all of the money they've got. They've asked us to potentially contribute, and when they open, so they know, and they don't release how much they're spending on a project, so it's confidential. We don't know, and they know the money, and they open up the envelopes until they run out of money, and that's where it's at. So we don't have the ability to say, okay, well, come back and tell us how much you need. Their process doesn't allow for that. They've told us that they feel there's a good chance that they won't require any funding, but their pricing is much like ours. Sometimes you're spot on, sometimes you're off. So it is difficult for us to predict. It's difficult for them to predict, but there is no option for us to say, well, we could say limit it to $350,000, but we don't know if that will do anything or not.
Thank you.
Further comments from members of council? I'll start at the end with Councillor Mayette and work our way up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like the Deputy Mayor said, I don't think we really have a choice in this matter. This is a kind of a go, no-go situation, right? So I will, too, be reluctantly supporting it. Two questions. One is, why is the money to be come from future capital reserves? Wouldn't it come from the waterfront reserve? have the money that we allocated for waterfront improvements, we haven't spent all of it.
Of course I can, I guess I'm the mayor, but most of that was all borrowing. There was no allocated funding from reserves or tax levy.
Okay,
it was all
financed,
intended to be financed through borrowing.
All right, and I'm just wondering about the logistics of, this is going to be a fairly significant project. I remember when they did the waterfront, the walkway and the harborfront last year, that in conjunction with what we just heard from Mr. Danini and his aggressive schedule, seems to me like we could be running into conflicts with, because they had a significant laydown area for all this steel and pilings and barges, and this isn't even more because it's further out. So I just hope that logistically we at least have those two parties overlapping their plans a little bit, so we don't run into that major problem.
That's a good point. Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jane, my first question is about accessibility in terms of our legal duties and responsibilities according to the Accessibility Act. If we are renovating, or someone is renovating this asset, do we have a legal responsibility for it to comply with accessibility requirements that are, that are expected by 2025?
My understanding is that the building code is not affected by breakwaters, but in knowing that information and in our conversations that we've had with DFO to date, if you're familiar with that area at all, you will recognize or remember that there's 2 steps down to access that breakwater and the breakwater extension. They're eliminating that step and will be implementing a ramp, so it will be accessible for those in wheelchairs and with mobility devices to access that area.
More questions? I think my next question would be about safety barriers. I have a concern about liability. What kinds of measures would we be taking to make sure that this is as safe as possible?
At this point, there's no discussion about of erecting a fence along that way. Similar to what we had existing, we would have signage that identifies the risk. The other thing that we have are throwing devices because it is along a wall, which we know produces riptides. So those would be some areas some things that we would be looking at specifically.
Actually led into my last question, which is about the sustainability of this and our investment when we are being faced with rising water levels, perhaps more severe wave action that I think is reasonable to predict.
Again, conversations we've had with DFO, they're looking at a sheet piling encapsulating the area, but they're also looking at halfway down along the west side will be a riprap to help reduce some of the wave action. They're also considering a wider breakwater than what we have there now, and also rising it, making it higher than the existing breakwater to accommodate higher water levels as well.
Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And we heard Mr. Danini talking about a $5 to $7 million investment this evening. We talked about around $1.5 to $2 million investment in our waterfront. Federal government coming in with 2-point-something million for the new break wall. So the investment in our waterfront is pretty significant. And I think if we're going to carry out this project, whether today or 5 years from now, putting a walkway in there was probably maybe not even doable, and the cost would be out of sight. And suppose if we're going to do it, today we should be doing it in light of the fact that the contractors are there, and it'd be a whole lot cheaper today than 5 years from now. Once, if we make the decision to turn this down this evening, that means that break wall, for the life of that break wall for the next 50 years won't have a walkway out into Lake Huron. And I guess I've heard on the other side of it, I've heard a good number of people saying, please bring back the promenade. Please bring back the boardwalk, not boardwalk, but the walkway. I'm just wondering also about a fundraising campaign. I know this is a lot of work, and I know we were looking at ad hoc committees, and there's some people pretty passionate in this community about the walkway, and if you want the walkway badly enough, maybe the public should come forth and help us with it. And I look back at the $800,000 that the provincial government handed us back in 2008-9, last-minute funding. We formed the town council asked for a committee to be formed to help with a short-term 4-month, 6-month fundraising campaign. They went out and raised, Friends of the Library and other people went out and raised $350,000. You were on council at the time. So, if this is something that the public really wants, I'm wondering if the public should get involved. And we have a growing list of volunteers who are on our list of committee appointment lists that have said, oh, well, I'd like to volunteer for different committees. I know fundraising is hard. But I'm just wondering if we should be looking at that. If it's $700,000, maybe we should be setting a target of $350,000 and throw up a thermometer and try and raise $350,000 of the $700,000. It's doable. We haven't had a fundraising campaign run by the municipality in the last little while. I know the pool's on the horizon, ball complex on the horizon, but I don't think those fundraising campaigns are about to start in the next 3 months. I just want to throw that out there. I know Jane's looking at me, oh my gosh, fundraising campaign. And I know staff work to the furthest extent, but maybe there are community volunteers. The media's here tonight. Maybe we should put a call out to the public to help with this, Mr. Mayor. And $700,000 is a lot of money. And I just fear if we turn this down, it's final. We won't be building it in 5 years from now, 10 years from now. There have been a lot of people in this community who enjoyed that walkway out to the point down at the Port Ogden Beach for many, many, many years. And there are a lot of people in the community who would like to see it happen. So I am going to support it, but it's a lot of money, and I would like to see this council and staff consider a hurry-up 3-4 month fundraising campaign at the cost.
Further comments from members of council? I think I think that's the thing, right? Is that it's an opportunity we have today, and if you don't seize it today, it's an opportunity lost, and often an investment which is, and there's no, if it comes to being an investment, $700,000, which it may not, but if it does, it will be a significant investment. But looking back 20 years from now, I think it will look like a good investment. And an investment in the sort of the future of that whole area. I think it does not necessarily need to be funded from future capital reserve. It could be funded through borrowing. We have significant borrowing capacity, and so it could be done in a way that doesn't impact the reserves. But that's something that we can consider when it comes to financing once we know the amount. I also think that the potential of fundraising some money for it I think exists in that naming rights for things like this and stuff can come with a value, and we could potentially come up with, I think, 1 or 2 larger sponsors possibly for it. Something which we would do, I think, once we knew the dollar figure. I mean, you wouldn't want to raise money just yet because we don't really know. We may not spend any of this, in which case you don't really need a fundraising campaign. So I think once we know, have an idea what the cost to us is going to be, that's something that we could do, and you could potentially put somebody's name on the thing and raise some money that way or whatever. So I think that's an option, an idea that we could pursue. I think so. There's some options, but I do think that as much as it looks like today, I think it's we have the opportunity right now, and I think it's an opportunity we should seize. So if there's nothing further, then you've heard the recommendation, or have you heard it? Maybe not. Yes, you have. Okay. Then all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay. So that moves us on to item number 2, the Accessibility Advisory Committee report of July 3rd. And I'll just read the recommendation then, that it's been moved by Councillor Grace and seconded by Councillor Mayette that Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores adopts the Accessibility Advisory Committee report dated July 3rd, 2019, recommending that the 2019-20 Accessibility Advisory Committee work plans be approved. Are there questions or comments to the resolution? I just would say, as Council's representative on the Accessibility Advisory Committee, that the committee's been doing some excellent work, and I think that there's going to be some opportunities, I think, for us to discuss some enhancements to accessibility in some of our facilities, particularly adult change tables. This is something that we've developed some of our washrooms to be able to accommodate, and I think Council may be considering some of that come budget time to enhance our accessible facilities. So, but the committee's been doing excellent work, and I certainly have enjoyed my time there. So, if there's nothing else, then all in favor? That's carried. And that moves us on then to report of the Municipal Heritage Committee, July 17, 2019. It has been moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Rich, that Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores adopts the Municipal Heritage Committee report dated July 3rd, 2019, recommending that the 2019-20 Municipal Heritage Committee work plans be approved. Questions or comments to the resolution? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. That moves us on then to the Striking Committee Report 1, July 2nd, 2019. It has been moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Schreider, that Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores adopts the Striking Committee Report 1, dated July 2nd, 2019, recommending that the terms of reference for the Official Plan Review Ad Hoc Public Advisory Committee be approved. Questions or comments to the resolution? Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a question about the terms of reference and the responsibilities of the resident members. I'm not sure how, if I could quote, I guess, it says that the resident members are supposed to ascertain or advise town staff on the significance of the comments received during the public consultation and advise staff if the comments received are representative of Saugeen Shores residents. And I guess I am seeking clarification on how those members would be chosen, how staff would be able to ascertain that those people would have that ability. And so I would be looking for more defined membership qualities, maybe representing a particular age group, a demographic group, like young parents, families, school-age children, volunteer group representatives, resident association representatives. So I have some questions about that. And I also would like to see at least 2 council members on that committee. Thank you.
Pardon me, so I can speak to those questions. On the first point, the Striking Committee will, the intention is the Striking Committee will recommend names out of our committee pool, and we have an increasingly diverse group of people on there. And I would say to members of council, if there are other people out in the community who aren't in the pool, I'd encourage them to get on the pool. We've been able, in the last little bit, the committee's tried to be flexible, so when folks put their name forward, we can sort of add them to the pool and appoint them to a committee at the same time. But I think the Striking Committee is open to the suggestions. We're all here, and we've heard your suggestions on demographics, et cetera, and I think we probably, can't speak for my colleagues, I guess, but I suspect we agree with your thoughts on that. The intention here, and it is a bit of a departure, and this is to your second question, or point. The intention is that this will be more of a focus group, if you like, to advise staff, not to advise council, but to advise staff. So staff will receive this information, and I think the manager of development, supervisor of development services would like to just bounce these ideas off some people who we've given him and try to get a sense of whether he's on the right track before he makes recommendations to council. And so I think that it's an intention. The intention here is for staff to do a little background work with a few members of the community to help strengthen their work as they come back to council. So that's why we haven't recommended appointing members of council to the committee, because all members of council will be deeply and directly involved in the official plan review at every level. And so this is an opportunity for staff to get that bit of feedback before they, as they build up for recommendations to council and for that council discussion. So it is a departure, and I think the way I see it is if we are appointing committees that are going to be making recommendations to council that are council's committees, that members of council would be part of those. But we also have the flexibility to appoint some of these focus groups to help staff with some of their work. So that's the intent, and I think we should try it. And it's a low impact way to try it and see how it works. And if we don't like how it works, we may not do it again. But I think it's an opportunity to try it and see how it works and see if we think it's a good way to structure some committees in the future. Councillor Grace.
So would you be proposing that the effectiveness and success of this format be reviewed within a fairly short period of time? It's a very important study, and I would like to see a review happening within several months to see how effective that format of the committee is, as opposed to waiting until the end of the process and then saying, well, effective, so we'll try it in another 5 years.
I think that we can review it. The striking committee will be responsible with your input and council's input. If we hear back from council that we're not liking how this is going, then we probably won't do it again. But it'll be up to the striking committee and council to decide whether we want to pursue these things like this in the future. But we'll review it certainly. And council, I think it's very important just to reiterate, council is going to get the opportunity and through the official plan review to review the work that staff is doing on an ongoing basis. Council, as the planning committee, is going to be doing this work. And if we're not content with how it's coming out, then we're going to have every opportunity to tell staff that. So, if there's nothing further, then you've heard the resolution. I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. So that moves us on to Striking Committee Report 2, and has been moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, that the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores adopts the Striking Committee Report 2, dated July 2nd, 2019, recommending that the following members be appointed to the Lamont Sports Park Ad Hoc Advisory Committee and Airport Committee. On the Lamont Sports Park Ad Hoc Advisory Committee, we will appoint members Jim McKinnon, Gord Lamont, Andy Dunlop, Anne DeChambeau, Connor Yorth. Deputy Mayor Matheson will be the chair, and Councillor Schreider will serve on the committee as well. On the Airport Committee, members will be Kevin Yaroskavich, Tony Alberts, William Rainey, Randy Linton, Councillor Carr, and the alternate member will be Councillor Mayette. So, questions or comments to the resolution? The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think there should be a change of the name. It's Anne DeChambeau McKay.
And that can be amended, I'm sure. Anything further? Seeing nothing, then all in favor. It's carried. Okay, that's the end of reports of municipal officers. That takes us on to motions and notices of motions. I don't have any of those. So bylaws. And we have 5 bylaws. And I'll ask, does any member wish to draw out one of these bylaws for individual consideration? Seeing none, then I'll read them. It's been moved by Councillor Schreider, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, that the following bylaws are hereby read a first, second, and third time and finally passed and sealed this 22nd day of July 2019. 1/60/2019, being a bylaw to authorize the entering into of an agreement with PMH Insights. 2/61/2019, being a bylaw to adopt Amendment Number 33 to the Local Official Plan 90/2012 by Sean O'Dwyer for 244 Rankin Street, Town of Saugeen Shores. 362-2019, being a bylaw to authorize the entering into of a lease agreement with the Southampton Curling Club. 463-2019, being a bylaw to authorize the entering into of a lease agreement with the Society of United Professionals, IFPTE, Local 160, and 564-2019, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 75-2006, being the comprehensive zoning bylaw for the Town of Saugeen Shores by 123841 Ontario Incorporated, Cayley's Crane, for the lands described as lots 30 and part lot 31, range WSR, Town of Saugeen Shores. Questions or comments to the resolution? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. All right, that moves us on to close to public, and I have a motion moved by Councillor Rich and seconded by Councillor Schreider that Council move into a closed to public session in accordance with Bylaw 63-2015, 1, Section 3.8.2A regarding the security of the property of the municipality or local board regarding the Port Elgin waterfront development revitalization, 2, Section 3.8.2A regarding the security of the property of the municipality or local board regarding the station, and 3, Section 3.8.2B regarding personal matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees, regarding an appointment to the Nuclear Innovation Institute Board of Directors. Questions or comments to the resolution? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. We will reconvene in the committee room. So we'll we'll rise from closed session and resume the council meeting. A motion moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by the Vice Deputy Mayor, that council arise from closed public session with a report and resume the regular council meeting. All in favor? Carried. And our report is as follows. It has been moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Schreider, that Jessica Linthorne be appointed to the Nuclear Innovation Institute's Board of Directors. Questions or comments to the resolution? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor Mayette, seconded by Councillor Grace, that Bylaw 65-2019, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores, is hereby read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed and sealed this 22nd day of July 2019. All in favor? That's carried. And finally, I have a motion moved by Councillor Grace, seconded by Councillor Mayette, that the regular council meeting of July 22nd, 2019 hereby adjourns at 9:45 p.m. All in favor? Carried. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.